Vasumathi, and we look forward to the session with you. I request everyone to kindly keep their audio on mute because this is being recorded. And therefore, if and when you want to ask any questions, which will be at the end, kindly unmute yourself and ask questions then. Thank you. And now it's over to Ramesh to kindly introduce Dr. Vasumathi. And a warm welcome to Dr. Hegde also. He may not be able to speak today, but thank you so much for being with us this evening. Over to you, Ramesh.
Thank you, Sajani. Am I audible?
Little louder.
Just a minute. Other noises. Now it's better. Manjula
Okay, Ramesh, doesn't matter.
Okay. Okay, a very warm welcome to all of you. I would like to welcome Vasumathi today, who's in our midst. She's part of Hegdeji's team. She's a scholar of Vedanta, and the good news I hear is that she is an example of a person who's undergone transformation, and she will speak to us today through that experience, and we're really looking forward to hearing chapter 14 from her. Thank you so much. Over to you. Sorry.
Thank you so much, Ramesh.
Over to you, Hegdeji.
Okay, thanks. And now it's over to you, Doctor, for chapter 14.
Vakratunda Mahakaya Suryakoti Samaprabha Nirvignam Kurume Deva Sarvakaryeshu Sarvada Guru Brahma Guru Vishnu Guru Devo Maheshwaraha Guru Sakshat Parabrahma Tasmai Shri Gurave Namaha. Reverential pranams to my Guru Dr. Timappa Hegde sir, my Sadguru Swami Paramarthananda and Jagat Guru Bhagavan Shri Krishna. In all humility, I embark on sharing my understanding of Swamiji's words as a fellow sadhaka, not from the pedestal of a speaker, let alone a teacher. Today's topic is chapter 14, Gunatraya Vibhaga Yoga. Before we begin with the verses, can we have some idea about what this 14th chapter is about? The 14th chapter, like the previous chapter, falls within the third Shatkam of the Bhagvadgita, the third group of 6 chapters. In the third Shatkam, Lord Krishna concentrates on Gnana Yoga, and therefore we find the essential teachings of the Upanishads condensed in these chapters, especially the 13th, 14th, and 15th chapters, as they deal with the pursuit of self-knowledge or Atmagnanam. Though these 3 chapters are relatively small, they're very significant chapters. We know that the method of arriving at the subject by negating every object, including the body, mind, and the thoughts, is called Drigdrishya Viveka. And we saw in the 13th chapter, this subject-object differentiation method employed is Kshetra Kshetragna Vibhaga, Purusha Prakriti Vibhaga. Now, in the 14th chapter also, Krishna is going to deal with the same subject matter, but how differently? Here, Atma, my true nature, is going to be revealed as Gunatitaha or Nirguna Tattvam. And everything that has got gunas or attributes, they are all Anatma, the object. And by negating everything Saguna, what will be left behind is the Gunatitaha, the Nirguna Atma. What was presented as the observer in the 13th chapter, the same Atma is presented here as the attributeless principle. And we are going to differentiate Gunatraya and Gunatitaha, and we are to claim that I am the Gunatita Atma, I am not the Gunatraya Anatma. Krishna takes us to the Gunatita Atma, Gunatraya Dvara, through the 3 gunas as stepping stone. Going to the Gunatita Atma is the subject matter of this chapter, and therefore it is called Gunatraya Vibhaga Yoga. With this background, we'll enter into the chapter proper. Next slide. Let's now see how the chapter starts. The first two verses of this chapter happen to be introductory verses in which Lord Krishna first mentions that he is going to deal with self-knowledge. Krishna gives an introduction saying that the subject matter of Atma Gnanam is the liberating wisdom and therefore the greatest knowledge. Why is it the greatest knowledge? All the other disciplines of knowledge are called aparavidya, inferior knowledge, whereas self-knowledge, which is called paravidya in the Upanishads, and Rajavidya in the 9th chapter, is the greatest knowledge, since this alone releases a person from samsara. All the other disciplines of knowledge will make me feel smaller and smaller, because the more I study, I come to know how little I know. Whereas Paravidya is the only wisdom which makes me own the fact that I am Brahman, the biggest. Let us see how Krishna proceeds now. Next slide, please. In the next two verses, the third and fourth, Krishna summarizes the process of creation which he had dealt with in the 13th chapter. As a reminder, Krishna is summarizing the process of creation because the development of the teaching depends upon the knowledge of creation as the foundation. To present symbolically the father principle, Purusha Tattvam, and the mother principle, Prakriti Tattvam. And this is to show that Purusha cannot create the world without the support of Prakriti, and Prakriti cannot create the world without Purusha. And therefore, whenever we talk of God, it's a mixture of both. Krishna points out that God is the cause of the creation, and God consists of two aspects. One is the consciousness aspect, and the other is the matter aspect. Too many terms are being introduced, and does it sound a bit confusing? Let us recall them in the light of what we have learned so far. Next slide, please. In the 7th chapter, Chetana Tattvam was called Para Prakriti. Achetana Tattvam was called Apara Prakriti, and Chetana Tattvam was called as Para Prakriti. In the 13th chapter, Chetana Tattvam was called Purushaha and Achetana Tattvam was called Prakriti. And in the Upanishads, generally, the Chetana Tattvam is called Brahman and Achetana Tattvam is called Maya. These two principles together are called Ishvara, and this Ishvara is Anadi. From this Chetana, Achetana Mishram alone, the entire universe has originated, including every individual. And from this, we can easily infer that every individual must be a mixture of Chetana, Achetana Tattvam, because as the cause is, so the effect will be. The law is Karana Gunaha Karye Anuvartante. That is, the features of the cause will inherit the effect also. Based on the same principle, I, the individual, is the mixture of Purusha and Prakriti, Brahman and Maya, Chetanam and Achetanam, otherwise called Atma Anatma Mishraha I am. Next slide, please. Krishna says, Hey Arjuna, I am the Purusha Tattvam. And what is Purusha Tattvam? Nirguna, Nirvikara, Satya, Chetana Tattvam. Purusha means the changeless, attributeless consciousness principle, which is independent and absolute reality. Whereas Prakriti Tattvam is Saguna, Savikara, Mithya, Achetana Tattvam, that which has attributes and that which is subject to changes and that which is of the nature of Jada, inert principle. From this, we can infer another aspect, and that is the Anatma part of the mind, which is born out of Prakriti, will have the three gunas, which belong to Prakriti. Prakriti is responsible for the origination of my Anatma part, and therefore my Anatma part will have these three gunas. And what is the Anatma part? The body-mind complex, otherwise called the Ahankara part. So the body-mind complex is equal to the Anatma part, is equal to the Ahankara part, which is Sagunaha, endowed with the three gunas, because it's a product originating from the Prakriti. Similarly, I have got a Purusha aspect, that is the Chetana aspect also, called the Atma, which is Nirgunam in nature. And this Nirguna Atma is called Sakshi. Thus, Saguna Ahankara plus Nirguna Sakshi, Saguna matter plus Nirguna consciousness is the individual. All the interactions are done by the mixture of Sakshi and Ahankara. And the whole aim of this teaching is I should learn to own up more and more of my higher Sakshi Swarupam, which is my permanent nature. And I should not be over-obsessed with my inferior Ahankara materialistic nature. Not that Ahankara should be neglected, because without Ahankara, pure Sakshi cannot transact. So Ahankara is needed, but overimportance or obsession with Ahankara will lead to all types of problems. Instead of seeing myself as Ahankara, I should learn to see myself as Sakshi, now transacting through Ahankara Kanchukam, that is Ahankara overcoat. For this purpose, Krishna talked about the creation, and the essence of this topic is I am also a mixture of Saguna and Nirguna aspect. What happens next? And having presented this foundation, Lord Krishna begins the teaching from the 5th verse onwards. He talks about the 3 gunas of Ahankara to show that all the 3 gunas are causes of bondage if we do not know how to make use of them properly. And it's true of anything in the creation. If I know how to handle things, it can help me grow. If I do not know how to handle, the very same thing will cause problems. For example, you take fire. It's a blessing or a curse, depends on whether I know how to handle fire. Is electricity a blessing or a curse? By itself, it is neither. But if I do not know how to handle, it becomes a curse. Similarly, the 3 gunas also, if I do not know how to make use of, they can become ropes or chains to bind me. And therefore, I should have a thorough understanding of these 3 gunas. Next slide, please. From the 5th verse up to the 18th verse, we get an analysis of the 3 gunas, which is essentially an analysis of the Ahankara, because Ahankara has the 3 gunas. And for the convenience of our study, Krishna classifies this analysis into 5 parts. What are those 5 parts? First, he gives the Lakshanam or definition of the 3 gunas. And then he gives the mode of bondage, how each guna binds if we do not know how to handle, bandhana prakaraha. Then he gives the lingam, indication to find out which guna is dominant in me. Thereafterwards, gatihi. Gati means post-death travel, the travel after life. And then finally, phalam, the consequences of the predominance of each guna. Can we look at each of them more closely? First, he gives the definition. Sattvaha is prakashatmakam, rajas is raghatmakam, tamas is mohanatmakam. Sattva is that disposition of the mind which makes the mind knowledge friendly, which makes the mind a bright mind, thus disposed to the acquisition of knowledge. Whereas Rajoguna makes the mind karma friendly, activity friendly, a disposition which is suited for dynamism, lot of work, while Tamoguna makes the mind unfit, inimical to both, neither knowledge friendly nor activity friendly. Then the next one is the mode of bondage. How does it bind? When my mind is knowledge friendly, naturally I become a bookworm, all the time interested in operating the Gnanendriyas, not a Karvendriya active person. And therefore, I look for an infrastructure which is conducive to more and more study, a library atmosphere with lots of books and bright light. The mind seeks books, people who can teach, quiet atmosphere, ideally a deck, a table, pen, etc. If such a conducive atmosphere is not there, I become restless and unhappy. This is the bondage caused by Sattvaguna, by creating attachment to a knowledge infrastructure. Whereas Rajoguna creates attachment to what? It does not like library. It wants to do a lot of things. And therefore, it looks for activity-friendly atmosphere. And when such an atmosphere is there, that mind is very happy. If that is not there, the mind becomes mad with anger. Therefore, Gnana Sangena Sattvam Badnati, Karma Sangena Raja Badnati. And Tamaha, it will look for what? Nidra Sangena. These are the 3 types of Bandhana Prakaraha. Then the Lingam, the indication of the 3 gunas. This is a corollary we get from the previous discussion. When is Sattva dominant? When Gnanam increases, reading increases, study increases, thinking increases, it's an indication of Sattva Vritti. Whereas when the activity increases, it's an indication of Rajo Vritti. And when sleep and sleepy condition increases, it's an indication of Tamo Vritti. Next, Krishna talked about the Gati after death. When a person dies, when Sattva is predominant, one goes to higher lokas. When a person dies with Rajas predominant, he is born in the Manushya Loka, because Manushya Loka is meant for karma. When Tamoguna is predominant after death, that person goes down. So, Urdhva Gati, Madhyama Gati, and Adogati. And finally, the consequences of these three gunas were also pointed out. That is the phalam. The consequences in this life. That also we can easily derive. When Sattva Guna increases, Gnana Vriddhi takes place. When Rajoguna increases, the ambition and activities increase. And when Tamoguna increases, Nidra, Pramada means negligence, they increase. Such a life will be closer to an animal. Thus, Lakshanam, Bandhana Prakaraha, Lingam, Gati, and Phalam. All these 5 topics Krishna discusses from 5th verse up to the 18th verse, thereby completing the analysis of the 3 gunas. It's getting more and more interesting. Let us look at what happens next. And then comes the crucial 2 verses, 19 and 20, in which Krishna talks about transcending the 3 gunas. And for transcending the 3 gunas, one will have to make use of the 3 gunas. Next slide, please. How to become a guna atitaha? A compromised answer would be, you become a guna atitaha when you shift your identification from the lower I, the ego, to the higher I, the consciousness. Become within quotations. As long as I identify with my body-mind complex, I will be saguna ahankara. And as long as saguna ahankara, I can never escape from samsara. The only way is to shift the identification from the body-mind complex to the Sakshi Chaitanyam. Instead of saying, I'm the body with the Sakshi, you have to practice reversing the statement, I'm the Sakshi with an incidental and temporary body given by the Lord. And for the sake of transaction, there's nothing wrong in identifying with the body and mind. But this is done with an awareness, just like an actor identifies with the role with the awareness that I'm not the role. You need not disclose this outside, but you remember the fact that I'm ever the guna ati, the sakshi, and I'm functioning in the world through the saguna hankara. And as long as I'm playing the role, I have to do everything properly. And therefore, the only solution is knowing about the higher nature and owning up the higher nature. Knowing and owning. And therefore, in these 2 verses, namely 19th and 20th, which are the most important verses of the 14th chapter, Krishna tells you can become guna atitaha only by knowing your higher nature. And it is not enough that you know, but you should learn to identify with your higher nature and look upon the ahankara as a temporary vesha. Make your life into a drama with the ahankara role. So this ahankara atma viveka is going to be explained in these 2 verses. Next slide, please. The entire spiritual sadhana is a gradual journey from tama pradhana life to raja pradhana life to sattva pradhana life and then on to gunatita life. And how does the scripture accomplish this? The scriptures prescribe lot of karma to a person who is now tama pradhana. And what type of karmas? Sakama karma, selfish activities to fulfill worldly materialistic desires. In fact, scriptures urge desires, just as we have got advertisements now to generate desires. Veda itself has commercials. Veda Purva Bhaga is full of advertisement because it wants to inject desires in Tamoguna person who is always sleepy and refuses to get up and to make him Rajoguni. What type of karma? Sakama karma, selfish activity. The scriptures recommend for the initial step. And once a person has got into Sakama Karma, then the scriptures gradually change his status. Rajoguna should be maintained, and it should be of a different type of Rajoguna. The first Rajoguna is Tamoguna tainted Rajoguna. Sattvaguna tainted Rajoguna should be the next stage. What is the difference between these two? Both the Rajogunas will activate a person, no doubt. It will make the person extremely ambitious. It will whip up the ambition, but the difference will be initially all desires are personal, selfish, more oriented. That means the beneficiary of my activity will be only myself or maximum my family. That will be the first stage. Whereas when that Rajoguna is converted to the higher Rajoguna, Sakama Karma will be converted into Nishkama Karma, which means the beneficiaries of my activity will not be my family alone. There's a wider circle. Neighbors benefit, the entire community benefit, the temples around benefit, the educational institutions around benefit, and that not just myself. As the beneficiaries increase, Sakama Karma is getting converted into Nishkama Karma. This is the travel from lower Rajoguna to the higher Rajoguna. To use the 4th chapter language, Guna Shudra to Guna Vaishya to Guna Kshatriya. Guna Kshatriya is a person whose life and activities will benefit the entire community, nationwide community, the whole universe itself. Once the person has lived a Guna Kshatriya life, which is otherwise called Karma Yoga, then the scriptures ask you to graduate to the next stage. Sattva Guna Pradhana life. After the peak of activity, gradually one has to withdraw. Grahastha to Vanaprastha. You may not physically leave home, but in the lifestyle, the orientation is gradually changed. And at this stage alone, the scriptures talk about more of upasana and less of karma. So, upasana is the sadhana which makes the extroverted, active person convert into a quiet and withdrawn and self or atma-oriented person. Thus, upasana sadhana makes me a sattva pradhana purusha. When one becomes a sattva pradhana purusha, the activities are gradually dropped. And one does not feel any guilt over this since he has contributed to the society sufficiently. He is not a selfish person because for so many years he has contributed. Now he can turn to concentrated spirituality. And not only that, physically also, this person becomes incapable of more activity, meaning it's more conducive for inward directed life. Thus, Tama Pradhana to Raja Pradhana to Sattva Pradhana, he has come by following Karma Yoga and Upasana. Next slide, please. Then Sattva Guna to Nirguna travel alone is a totally different type of travel. There is no corridor connecting Sattva Guna and Nirguna. As we see the example of a pole vaulter, he uses the pole to cross over, and he can't be carrying his pole to the next region. He has to leave that behind when he takes a quantum leap forward. Tamoguna can be changed to Rajoguna. Rajoguna can be changed to Sattvaguna. Sattvaguna can never be converted into Nirguna. If Sattvaguna is converted, it will again become either Tamoguna or Rajoguna only. I repeat, there is no corridor connecting Gunatraya and Nirguna. And therefore, the only sadhana is Gnanam. After a person becomes the Sattvaguna Pradhana, Karma Yoga is dropped, Upasana is dropped because they have served their purpose by making him Sattvaguna Pradhana. In fact, Sattvaguna Pradhana person is called Sadhana Chatushtaya Sampanna Adhikari. Then, what is the sadhana? Gnana Yoga. This Krishna tells clearly in verse 19. Next slide, please. Nanyam gunebhyah kartaram yada drashtanupashyati gunebhyascha param veti madbhavam su adhigacchati. The crucial word here is veti. He comes to know, and Krishna does not say how to get the knowledge because he has already said that in the 4th chapter. Knowledge does not come automatically. Whether your mind is a noisy mind or whether your mind is a silent mind, ignorant mind will be ignorant. No knowledge for that matter can happen naturally. That's why Dayananda Swamiji beautifully said, if you sit quietly, what would have happened is previously noisy, ignorant mind to quiet, ignorant mind. Thus, by stilling the mind or quietly sitting in meditation, knowledge does not happen. What should you do? Tadvidi pranipatena pariprashnena seveya upadekshanti te gnanam gnaninas tattvadarshinaha, as said in chapter 4, verse 34, by going to a guru. What kind of a guru? Shrotriya Brahmanishta guru. And systematic study of Vedanta. Not a casual now and then listening to some satsanga here and there. And all of them are meant to inspire you. Inspiration is different, teaching is different. And systematic study includes Shravanam, Mananam, and Nididhyasanam, study of the scriptures for a length of time, and thereafterwards removing all the doubts by proper Mananam or analysis, and thereafter internalization of the teaching. So by Shravanam, Mananam, and Nididhyasana, I become Gunatitaha. Now the question is, how do I become Gunatitaha? By Shravanam. As I said, the body-mind complex will be eternally saguna. It would not become nirguna. Then what do I do through Gnana Yoga? I learned to disidentify from the body by knowing the fact that body is only an incidental instrument I'm using for worldly transaction. Exactly like the spectacles. And when I remove the spectacles, what happens? I'm not gone, but I'm not able to see the people. Similarly, when the body-mind complex is not there, I do not disappear. I do not have the medium to interact with the people. And we do experience such a situation daily. When? During deep sleep state. And therefore, body-mind complex is temporarily used and then it will be dropped. I should take the instrument as myself. Then, if I'm not the body-mind complex, who am I? I'm not the body, but I'm the experiencer of the body. I'm not the mind, I'm the experiencer of the mind. And therefore, all the known attributes belong to the known body-mind complex only. This is a very important law to remember. Any experienced attribute belongs to the experienced object. If I see a green color, the color belongs to the eye or the object. The seen color belongs to the seen object. It does not belong to the seer eye. The objectified attribute belongs to the objectified substance. No attribute belongs to the objectifier I. And therefore, all the gunas belong to the body-mind complex. I am free from all the three gunas. You do not contact the Gunatita Atma. You do not become the Gunatita Atma. You own up the fact that I was Gunatitaha, I am Gunatitaha, and I will be Gunatita. This transformation in the I takes place, and this knowledge-based transformation is called moksha or Jivan Mukti. The day I discover I am the Purna Sakshi, the running about for Purnatvam will stop. Thereafter also I may run around, but not for Purnatvam, but it is out of Purnatvam. If I'm acting for Purnatvam, there is eternal anxiety. If I'm acting out of Purnatvam, there is no anxiety. And therefore, Krishna says, Madbhavam Adhigacchati. The one who has discovered the Sakshi, he attains Ishvara Bhavam, which means Purnatvam. The most important point to be noted here is what? Krishna says, this Purnatvam is only through knowledge. Next slide, please. We saw earlier that after death, Sattvaguna leads to Urdhvagati, Rajoguna to Madhyamagati, and Tamoguna to Adogati. But if I am Nirguna, what Gati? No Gati. Aham Agatihi Asmi. I am Agatihi because I am the Atma, the Chaitanyam, which is all pervading. In me, the consciousness, the Saguna matter appears, and in me, the consciousness, the Saguna matter resolves. I am never affected by the three gunas. This is called moksha, and this is what Krishna says in verse 20. Gunan etan atitya trindehi deha samudbhavan janma mrityu jara dukkaihi vimukto amrutam ashnute. And naturally, after hearing all this, Arjuna is curious to know what will be the lifestyle of such a gunatita person. And therefore, he asks three questions in the 21st verse. Next slide, please. Arjuna uvacha, Kairlingai strin gunaniyetan atito bhavati prabho, kim acharaha katam chaitam strin gunan ativartate. The three questions are, what are the indications, characteristics of the gunatita? And what is the conduct, acharaha, of the gunatitaha? And the method of becoming gunatitaha? Krishna gives the answer. The indication is that the very knowledge makes the mind less and less reactive to the situations, because the mind has become an enlightened mind, and an enlightened mind learns to have the right attitudes towards the Saguna creation. And what is the right attitude? Next slide, please. The creation will be different because the proportion of the gunas varies from individual to individual. Thus, no human being can be like me. And therefore, there is no question of compatibility, and differences are natural in Anatma. Changes are natural in Anatma. Association and dissociation are natural in Anatma. Birth, growth, declension, and death are natural in Anatma. I cannot change the Anatma. I should only change my attitude. And this changing of the attitude takes place gradually and through Nididhyasanam, which is called dwelling upon the teaching. I reduce my reactions gradually, and when the reactions reduce, knowledge does not improve. Knowledge does not become brighter, but knowledge seems to improve because the reactions are decreasing. Just like on a Purnami day, the moon seems to be brighter and brighter in the evening. But you know that moon is not becoming brighter. Sunlight is an obstacle to the brightness of the moon. And so as the sunlight recedes, the moon seems to be brighter and brighter. Next slide, please. This is what Swamiji calls FIR, a famous acronym serving as a very useful tool for sadhana. We can see the decrease in reaction at three levels: frequency of unhealthy reactions like frustration, fear, insecurity, anger, etc. The frequency comes down. Not that today you got knowledge, tomorrow you're all gems. No, even after study of Gita, it will continue because habits can be gradually changed. So do not expect a flashy transformation. It's not going to happen, says Swamiji. It's a gradual assimilation. Not only frequency comes down, the intensity of the reactions also come down. And how do you know the decrease in intensity? The most intense reactions is at three levels: manasam, vachikam, and kaikam. That is mental, verbal, physical. As the intensity comes down, it will be at two levels, since physical reactions subside, but mental and verbal will be there, constantly grumbling and making others also upset. And thereafter, with further reduction in intensity, verbal reactions also are gone, along with physical reactions. But in the mind, reactions do arise, even after studying Vedanta for years. This is reduction in intensity, says Swamiji. And finally, there's a reduction in the recovery period also. Previously, once I get angry, it continued for days, and then it comes down to hours, then it comes down to minutes and seconds. So I get a mental resilience to bounce back, even though I violently reacted. I'm able to forget that and continue with my life. Next slide, please. Thus, Nididhyasanam converts Gnanam into Dhananishta, reducing the violent reaction. But we should remember, reactions can never become zero. Zero reactions are only in the case of a table, chair, etc. They do not have reactions. They do not get angry. But our mind is live mind. Therefore, we can reduce the FIR, frequency, intensity, recovery period. These three we can bring down, but it can never become zero. It will be there. But what happens is, once I bring down sufficiently, thereafter, my meditation or Nididhyasanam becomes slightly different, which is that I should not be too much obsessed with my mind and its reactions. Because to be over obsessed with the mind is again identification with the mind, which is ahankara. Therefore, I reduce the reaction, and thereafterwards, I learn to distance from my mind, and I do not worry too much about the reacting mind. This is reaction to the reaction. We must all have experienced this feeling. First, we will react. Then we remember that I'm a Gita student and react a second time. So every Gita student has to face two reactions. One is the natural reaction to the situation, and the second is the reaction to the fact that I reacted, leading to depression, that I'm not progressing at all, I need not come to the class, etc., etc. Even if we do not get depression, family members will ensure that, they will create one. They say, what is the use of going to Gita class? Without attending Gita class, I'm better. That further hurts our ego. This is called the secondary reaction. After a particular time, I drop my secondary reactions. I'm not over-obsessed with the reaction of the mind. And I say that I do not have any reaction because I'm the witness of the reacting mind. First, reduce the reactions, then give up the reactions to the reactions. This is called Gnana Nishta. And these Krishna tells us in the last few beautiful verses, 22 to 27. Next slides, please. In 22nd and 23rd verse, Krishna is talking about the absence of reaction to the reaction. Swamiji says, reaction to the reaction is a greater samsara. A gnani does not react to the reaction. And this is the indication of gnana nishta. I'm not obsessed with my mind and its tendencies. And then the second question Arjuna asked is how he conducts oneself in life. Krishna emphasizes one main point, sarvatra samatvam. Next slide, please. Samadukka sukha swastaha samaloshtaashma kanchanaha tulya priya priyo dhiraha tulya nindatma samstutihi. There is an equanimity of the mind, and mind is free from violent reactions. And even if there are a little bit reactions, he does not react to those reactions. So, samatvam is his acharaha. Final question is how to become gunatitaha. And what's the answer? Knowledge gained with bhakti to the Lord, surrender to the Lord, and by the grace of the Lord, may you get gnanam, and that gnanam is the only solution. Next slide, please. Mam cha yo vyabicharena bhakti yogena sevate sa guna samathityaitan brahma bhuyaya kalpate. Through bhakti, you do not get liberation. Through bhakti, you get conducive atmosphere for knowledge and a conducive personality too. And then through knowledge, you will attain moksha. With this, all the three questions are answered. Next slide, please. Now Krishna concludes the teaching with verse 27. Brahmano hi pratishtaham amritasya avyayasya cha shashvatasya cha dharmasya sukasya ikantikasya cha. Here Krishna says, Arjuna, that Brahman which you want to attain, which is Gunatitam, is none other than I myself. I am not ordinary Devaki Nandana Krishna. I am the embodiment of that Brahman. Aham eva Brahmana pratishtita. And what type of Brahman I am? Amritasya, which is immortal. Avyayasya, which is free from declensions or decay or jara, etc. And Shashvatasya, which is ever changeless. So the three words put together, Amritasya, Avyayasya, Shashvatasya means Shadvikara Rahitasya, one who is free from all forms of modifications. And dharmasya in this context means the one who is reached through dharma, one who is the destination of all the scriptural teachings and sadhanas. And ekantikasya sukasya, that which is ananda swarupa, which is unmixed with sorrow. Ekantikasya sukham means dukkha rahita sukham, unalloyed ananda, unlike the worldly pleasures which are mixed with pain. Brahman is anando brahmeti vajanat. Such a changeless and ananda swarupam, Brahman, I am. And that you will reach by following this sadhana. With this, Krishna concludes the teaching. Next slide, please. Thus is concluded the 14th chapter of the Gita, which is happily titled Gunatraya Vibhaga, the classification of the three gunas, Sattva, Rajas, and Tamas, and also Guna Atitam Brahma, Gunatraya, Guna Atita Vibhaga Yoga. Om Tatsaditi Srimad Bhagavadgita Su Upanishatsu Brahma Vidyayam Yoga Shastre Shri Krishnarjuna Sambade Gunatraya Vibhaga Yogo Nama Chaturdasho Adhyaya. Hari Om. If you felt this time spent in listening to me was worthwhile, The glory be unto my gurus. If not, the limitations are totally mine. Thank you all for your precious time, and heartfelt gratitude to my guru, Dr. Timmappa Hegde sir, for bestowing upon me this blessing to learn. I'm grateful to the School of Ancient Wisdom for this opportunity. Krishnam Vande Jagadguru.
Thank you so much, Dr. Vasumathi. It was really super, excellent. Very well in the short while. You have spoken so well about the gunas. You have summarized the chapter so well. I think I need to listen to it again to get the whole thing very well. So now maybe open it up for question answer. Any questions, anyone?
If I can make a comment, Sajani.
Oh, Doctor, you're still there. Thank you so much.
Listening throughout, I came out of the meeting, I couldn't speak, but it's a difficult job within a span of 45 minutes. What is the essence of this chapter? What is this gunatraya? Because the entire Bhagavad-gita talks about the gunas, and this is a focused chapter which tells us that our whole journey is to move from tamoguna, which we are naturally lazy, to being hyperactive, to understand that we need certain qualifications for spiritual understanding. And then through the grace of the Acharya, we discover our true nature, which is actually Guna-atita. Very nicely brought out. Please leave the topic open for others to participate. Thank you, Sajani. Thank you, Vasumathi.
There was so much put in the short while. It was amazing. It was really amazing. Thank you so much now. And who would like to ask their question? Kindly unmute yourself and ask your questions. Yes? I think everyone's still too busy absorbing everything. So
In fact, I have a request to Hegde-ji. The time now is 9:13. You did mention a timeline of 1 hour that we start at 6:30 and end at 7:30, and then throw it open for questions. Could we, normally we start about 6:35 or 6:40 maybe. Could we have it like 1 hour from that time onwards, so that maybe if it's a little slower, we could absorb it more easily? Because the question answer session generally seems to be quite short. It doesn't need half an hour or even 20 minutes normally so far. That was a request.
Ramesh, let them carry on now. We've come to the end, as they have next time probably.
Yes.
Because earlier we would have a lot of questions. Now I think, we're not getting as many questions.
Yes.
So the floor is open for questions.
Yeah. Ma'am,
Generally,
Yes,
human attention, human
Yes,
attention
doctor.
is about 45 minutes. So it is useful if a speaker can talk maximum for 40-45 minutes. And then, if there is more to speak, it can come through interactions. Otherwise, the talk. Yes.
Yes, someone was asking a question a little while ago.
yeah, sorry, ma'am. This is Anindita. Yes, I was about to ask a question.
Go ahead.
Yeah. So I think the thing that was explained, that frequency, intensity, and recovery. So question is that as we learn or as we understand the various things that is explained in the Gita and the Upanishads, are we expected that we should not be reacting at all in any situation, in any situations that is not conducive to us, or we are just saying that the reaction to reaction is what we should not bother about? So that part, if Ma'am Vasumathi can.
Can I answer?
Yeah, thank you.
Yeah,
Yes.
Swamiji clearly says that, initially through our sadhana, we bring down our FIR, the frequency with which we get upset, our reactions, we bring them down. Suppose it's at 100%, maybe we bring it down to 60%, 50%, 40%. Beyond that, we are not able to do that. So he says, don't worry further to that. then whatever is left behind is something you say that belongs to the mind. I'm not the mind, and let it be. And over a period of time, even that reaction to reaction gets subsided. It kind of wanes off automatically. But initially, if your mind is too clouded, too much of ego, too much of insecurity, too much of fear, with that, you can't be taking on the stand of saying that my mind is not mine. You will be fooling yourself. You bring down the level of your agitation and your thought process in your mind to a calmer level, and then whatever is remnant, with that you say reaction to reaction, not with the clouded mind. That's what Swamiji clearly explains. Hope I have been able to make you get the point.
Okay, yeah. Thanks, ma'am. Yeah.
Thank you. Any more questions?
I would like to say something. It's not a question, but just to congratulate Vasumathi on a superb presentation. Done a great job, Vasumathi.
Thank you. We all agree. Okay, any other comments? Any questions, suggestions?
And that's what, going back to Anindita's question, that's what Swamiji says, no, even a sannyasi cannot have zero reaction. He can't win over everything because it's in the nature. So what you can do is you reduce and then you distance yourself from your reaction, saying that whatever is reacting is your mind and you are only a witness to that reacting mind.
Yeah. Okay.
Anyone else? No? Dr. Hegde, would you like to say something?
If at all, to respond to the same FIR, the question that was asked, Dr. Vasumathi has answered it perfectly. The more you are exposed to Guru, Shastras, what happens, the frequency will come down. When it comes down, if you get upset, but you won't get so upset. And even if you get so upset, you recover faster. And then, as she rightly said, all of us have a mind which is a monkey mind. And there is a limit to which we can improve upon it. Based upon our birth, our vasanas, our tendencies, there will be certain traits in our mind which we cannot improve beyond that. So if you still continue to get upset, don't get upset that you're getting upset. We have to understand. But what we need to understand is, this is a big jump in understanding that I'm not this body, I'm not this mind. This body-mind is only an instrument. And therefore, if there are some limitations in my body-mind, be kind to your body. What to do? You have a bad car or a bad instrument to work with.
Thank you. Yes.
I have a question, Sajani.
Go ahead, Ramesh.
This is regarding when Vasumathi ji was talking about, sakama karma, nishkama karma, and then upasana. How does scripture accomplish the gradual journey from tama to raja to sattva? You also mentioned that in rajaguna, initially when it is used, it makes one tend to move towards the tamasic side. But later on, when you are well situated in a higher consciousness, then that same rajaguna can be utilized to move you to a higher. Is my understanding correct? The same rajaguna can
No,
be
it's the other way around. We start with a tamoguna person who would not want to do any activity. So the kind of the luring him into activity to bring in some rajoguna in a totally tamoguna person is to introduce him to sakama karma. So you do this puja, it will be good for your health. You do this puja, your children will prosper better. So they'll get into that karmas which are sakama. So a person who is sleeping totally, you're introducing him, you're luring him. You do this, you get this. Right. So that will convert a tamoguna person to tamo pradhana rajoguna. But that's not enough. That's only a first step on the ladder. We should not, that's not end of all. there's so much more to, the journey to take forward. So there again, from Sakama, we say it's Nishkama Karma. That means Nishkama Karma is it's not just me and my family. There's a community benefit, society benefits at large. And that is how there is that Sattva tendency coming in. So first one is the Tamoguna tainted Rajoguna. The other one is Sattvaguna tainted Rajoguna. There's a difference. Sakama.
Sattva-guna tainted
with the overtures of Sattva-guna, you get into Rajo activity. The activity is, propelled for the greater good, not for the individual good. That is the Sattva aspect coming into the activity.
Wonderful.
Sir, you may correct me, sir, or you may add to that.
Actually, what you explained was very clear, Vasumathi ji, because earlier I remember being introduced to the concept of, there are three modes of nature and everything, right? Not just human beings, even foods, even objects, inanimate objects, animals, all that, falls into a combination of these three modes of nature, exclusively or a combination of them. So we used to always be, at least I was thinking that Tamoguna is the lowest level, grossest frequency, then Rajoguna is a higher frequency, and then you have Sattva-guna, which is the highest. But now this it makes it more nuanced, where Rajoguna can be utilized in a manner which is more tamas connected or more Sattva connected, depending on your level of growth and consciousness.
Yeah, your hierarchy you mentioned still continues. So then you use it as a stepping stone. That's what I said in the beginning also, and that's what, whatever I said is all Swamiji's words, none of it is mine. So he said, gunas you would use as a stepping stone to go beyond the gunas. So you have and this is not like I'm Sattva Guna, so I remain Sattva Guna throughout. I'll also go through my cycles of, Rajo, Tamo, and we all have seen, sometimes we have the best kind of mind, like, nothing can disturb us. No, we don't see anything bad in anybody who does something nasty. Also, we don't find fault with it. We are surprised with ourselves. But the little bit irritations in some other point of time, in our some other scene, we react very badly. So it is inherent in us. And they say without Tamoguna, we can't sleep also. That is needed.
Yes,
so there's a cycle of these three. And only thing is what percentage is more where what we are able to control. And all this guna is only an act of mind. I'm very away. I'm very different from that mind. Once you recognize this point, you let it be. You're only a sakshi to what is happening in that. Once you distance yourself, you calm down, your sattva goes up, everything else gets sorted out. And the problem is, we think we are gunis. We are the mind. Once we let that go and say we distance ourselves from the mind and happenings of the mind and look at it as a sakshi, and that is what Krishna says in this chapter. So you look at whole thing, whatever it is, the reaction to the reactions, or even before that, unfiltered ones, you leave it alone. That is that's the transaction of the world. You distance yourself. Then once you're a witness, it calms down, it comes down, it clears, it gets filtered. And that is through Gnana Yoga. And that's what Dayananda Swamiji says, ignorant mind, if you just sit quiet, will continue to be ignorant. So it doesn't become knowledgeable. So there has to be a source of knowledge for you to say that I'm not this body mind. I'm witness to this body mind happenings. So that happens through Shravana, Manana, Nididhyasana, through a competent guru.
So two questions come to mind. One is, does it mean that Bhakti Yoga is less? Is lesser than Jnana Yoga? Does it mean that?
It's a difficult question to answer it for me personally, but that's what Swamiji says. Bhakti is a very unquestionably required aspect of getting gnana. That last verse, he says that bhakti is there, but bhakti by itself will not give you moksha and gnana. Gnana, you'll have to pursue the gnana marga, but bhakti is the precursor with which you will take on gnana yoga. Without bhakti, That means the grace of God. Bhakti, if we can define on so many dimensions. If you look at bhakti as grace of God, without his grace, nothing can happen.
In fact, I remember the gurus in ISKCON, they would say, as you surrender to Krishna with bhakti, or not just Krishna, any form of divine that we like, with more and more bhakti, at one point, suddenly the jnana, you will spontaneously become present to jnana.
Yeah, that is Dvaita. There's a sea change between the way Dvaitins look at it and Advaita looks at it. So Dvaita says surrender, dasoham, you surrender, you are not there. What remains is God. But here we say soham, I am he. Maybe essentially it boils down to the same thing, but the perspective with which you look at it is different. So there is no substitute for Gnanam as far as Advaita is concerned. So that's the pinnacle of success.
Ma'am, but is Nishkama Karma leading to Bhakti Yoga and Jnana Yoga? I mean, is Nishkama Karma the stepping stone?
Yeah, see, Bhakti comes all along. Like, even when you do Sakama Karma, you say, God, you do this puja, God will give you that. Again, you believe that God gives you this and you're doing that. There is also an element of Bhakti. But as you progress, your Bhakti gets refined.
So my second question was, later Sattva-guna to Nirguna travel alone is a totally different type of travel. Could you elaborate on that? I'm very curious.
I'm happy you asked this question, and I knew you will ask this question. You didn't disappoint me.
I really want to know.
See, there is always sadhana, like the steps, when you have to climb up the ladder, there is the, staircase you have from ground floor to first floor. There's always a staircase. And there is a state of being, like, there's Rajo, there is Tamo, there is Rajo, there is Satvik Guna. So, there is a clear distinction. For example, I can give you an example. So there is ice, water, and there is steam. 3 forms. Okay, they all are in space. Do you have any travel or any connection to go to space? They're all contained in it. That's why it say Gunatita, in me the Gunatita, the Sattva resolves, Tamas resolves, Rajo resolves. In me they originate. So where is it going or coming? It is that absolute, that is that truth. So when this example of saying ice to water to steam, they're all in the space. Or if you look at that, Jagrat, Swapna, Sushupti, and then there is Turiya also. We look at Turiya as another 4th stage. It is not a 4th stage. Everything is contained in that. Or give you one more example of a screen. Okay, on the screen you have water, you have fire. Does screen belong to either water or fire? No. It is beyond that what you see on the movie screen, whether it's a water or a fire. What holds the substratum that holds the water or the fire is that screen, and that is that Gunatita state. It's not a state, it is that being. But that's what I'm saying. When I'm saying I'm a sadhaka doing sadhana to reach that sadhyam, it's all a kind of a mire we give for an initial learner, sadhaka, because I'm already that. But I don't realize that. I don't understand that. So there is no going, no coming. It's only kind of clearing off that, misconceptions.
So that means from Satguna to Nirguna, it is after, as you kind of connect with your own higher self, that is when that travel.
That state of being is Nirguna. That is that consciousness. So there's no going and coming. It's just owning up, knowing and owning.
Thank you, Ji. That was very uplifting. I have another question that is coming up, very fascinating one. But if anybody else has any other questions, I'll ask it later.
Vasumati's answers to the questions with ease was in itself a discourse, Upadesha. It was wonderful.
Very well.
It's all my gurus. Like, if I have said anything a little bit, it all belongs to my gurus.
It was very nice, Vasumati.
That what transformation Dr. Hegde sir was mentioning about is the transformation from the day I met him. I was in the wilderness going all over, I didn't know where to hold on. He became my anchor and he showed me the path and he made me progress, and he's hand-holding all of us. If you're seeing anything good in me, it's all because of him.
Very true.
We are really touched. So the question I wanted to ask was, since we spoke about Sataguna and Rajaguna, the gunas of the Sataguna, I know that languages, this is what I've been told, that different languages from different parts of the world, different types of music also fall into these gunas. And if you, for example, our yoga master used to teach us about the Omkara, the Akara, Ukara, and Makara. As you chant it, you vibrate the lower chakras and the middle chakras and the higher chakras. And then between the Omkaras, there is the silent syllable. So likewise, it seems when you speak Sanskrit or when you chant Sanskrit, automatically there is a ascension of the, the subtle raising of the consciousness. So different languages, when spoken in the correct manner, I believe even many Indian languages also have the same subtle effect on the body. And I've heard English is a language from the mode of goodness. It just takes you only to Sataguna. And even music also has that kind of behavior. Like if you look at classical music, it has a tendency to maybe take you into a meditative space or into a beyond Sataguna level if you really kind of still your mind. And heavy metal will take you into Tamaguna, for example, and things like that. So what is your opinion on all these daily aspects of life? Languages, music?
Actually, maybe inherently I don't have so much to contribute to that, but the fact is you started before you started your set of questions that everything in creation has these three gunas. You remember you made that statement. So that is corollary of what you're saying now. So everything has its place, has its gunas. Yeah, certain places we go, we feel calmer naturally. Some languages we talk, it will naturally calm us down. Some languages will make us more agitated. Yes, we have all experienced that. And the answer lies in what you made a statement before, that all of creation can be looked at as three gunas. That's one thing. And second thing, when you mentioned about Sanskrit, I'm missing my good friend, Dr. Ahalya, who recently took over as the Vice Chancellor of Sanskrit University, Karnataka Sanskrit University. We were to share this talk. Because she became busy with her Senate meeting, she couldn't be here. Maybe she could have thrown a lot of light on Sanskrit you're asking for. We should arrange for a talk by her on the role of Sanskrit in these things after the series of 18 chapters.
In fact, I dream of a Bharat where Sanskrit is a national language, because now scientifically it is being proven in the West. Children I remember I was studying in the UK for a short while. So children there, some of the elite schools, they were being taught Sanskrit shlokas, because by the end of the year, their maths and science scores were noticeably improving just by learning Sanskrit shlokas.
Yeah.
So if that is proven, I dream of a Bharat where we are all speaking Sanskrit.
Yeah, there are studies to prove that also, like, people who chant shlokas, the children, they're much better off. I think we should get Dr. Ahalya to speak about it now that she's taken over as the Vice Chancellor of Karnataka Sanskrit University. It will be nice for all of us to know more about it authentically.
Yes.
And whatever I would like to say, or add to what you're saying would be only a secondary or a tertiary information as far as I'm concerned. So let's hear from the horse's mouth.
We'll invite her. Okay, any other questions? No? Kindly unmute yourself. There can be comments, questions, anything. I don't see anything. So if that's the case, then I think we have to wind up now. Thank you so much, Vasumathi ji. It was really wonderful. And I now request Ramesh to kindly propose a vote of thanks, followed by the prayer.
Thank you, Sajani. Vasumathi ji, what can I say? Truly, you gave us a demonstration of what Hegde ji said, that she is a person who is an example of personal transformation, and she speaks through that. You spoke so clearly. You really have, that is a gift. You have the gift of the gab, and the ability to, the clarity with which you spoke. I think just the clarity itself kind of, I think it has the power to pull one out of Samguna. It is that clear. And effortlessly, you took us through this chapter. You made it look so simple, and you covered the chapter so fast. In fact, there was so much there that every sentence I was absorbing, and it felt like a very practical exercise on how one can conduct oneself in one's life and move ahead. And there were many moments when I was uplifted to a point of joy just by hearing the implications of, and just by processing the implications of what you said. So really, it was excellent. I really, I must say, I have a great deep gratitude for, even more deep gratitude for Hegde ji also, because I mean, if he is bringing out the best in people like this, it is giving me other ideas for personal growth. And also the Swamiji, I yearn to meet your Guruji also, the Swamiji, and spend more time with people like yourselves. That's the kind of effect you've had on us. Thank you so much for coming here and blessing us with all this wisdom that is practiced and delivered, which is so powerful. It is not like you reading the book yourself or some lay person giving you, reading out the same verses. It is, the power comes from the practice. When a person practices it and then speaks it, there is a completely different energy. And that's the energy we experienced today. Thank you so much, and God bless you all. And thank you so much, Hegde ji, also, as always. So we're really looking forward to chapter 15 next week. And on that note, with that attitude of gratitude, let us all sit straight, our back, neck, and head aligned. While we do the Loka Samasta, as always, please think of your loved ones. These prayers are very powerful when we do it in a group, and we are all interconnected. So let us experience that. Just think of your Ishtadeva and pass on the prayers to your loved ones. Take a deep breath. Let go. Center yourself within. Feel the silence that connects us all. Loka samasta sukhino bhavantu. Loka samasta sukhino bhavantu. Loka samasta sukhino bhavantu. Om Shanti Shanti Shanti. Om Tat Sat Brahmarpanamastu.
Thank you, Ramesh. Thank you, everyone, for being with us. And we look forward to seeing you next Thursday, same time, for chapter 15. Kindly tell your friends you've experienced how good every summary has been. We have the last 4 chapters, 15, 16, 17, 18. So kindly tell your friends and ask them to join us. Thank you, Vasumathi ji, once again.
Thank you so much. Thank
and
you.
we look forward